2026, Donald Trump delivered a State of the Union speech that sent shockwaves across the globe. The world watched as he outlined a series of controversial policies, from sweeping immigration crackdowns to a hardline stance on foreign affairs. This documentary unpacks the real impact behind his words, using dynamic motion graphics to guide you through the chaos and controversy. We begin by setting the stage: a divided nation, a world on edge, and a leader determined to reshape America's future no matter the cost. Let's dive into the events that followed this historic address. Trump's speech wasted no time in announcing a new wave of mass deportations. The administration promised to remove millions of undocumented immigrants, sparking fear and uncertainty in communities nationwide. Families were torn apart and cities braced for sweeping raids. The policy drew immediate backlash from human rights groups and local governments, who argued that such actions would devastate families and disrupt local economies. As we visualize these events, motion graphics highlight the scale and speed of the crackdown, showing the human cost behind the headlines. A bold and alarming move, Trump announced a significant military buildup targeting Iran. Troop deployments surged in the Middle East and tensions reached a boiling point. The world watched anxiously as the risk of open conflict grew. Allies expressed concern while adversaries prepared for the worst. Through animated maps and timelines, we illustrate how quickly the situation escalated, putting global security at risk. The speech marked a turning point in U.S.-Iran relations, with consequences that would reverberate far beyond the region. Trump doubled down on his trade war strategy, imposing new tariffs on key trading partners. The economic fallout was immediate. Prices soared, supply chains faltered, and American businesses struggled to adapt. Farmers, manufacturers, and consumers all felt the pinch. Animated charts and infographics reveal the ripple effects across industries, showing how the tariffs backfired and hurt the very people they were meant to protect. The global economy braced for impact as uncertainty spread. As the consequences of Trump's policies became clear, his approval ratings began to plummet. Polls showed a dramatic loss of support, not just among political opponents but also within his own party. Animated graphs tracked the steep decline, highlighting key moments that triggered public outrage. The administration scrambled to regain control of the narrative, but the damage was done. Trust in leadership eroded, and calls for accountability grew louder. The world responded to Trump's speech with a wave of protests. From London to Tokyo, crowds gathered to denounce U.S. policies. Animated scenes capture the energy and diversity of these demonstrations with banners, chants, and powerful visuals. International leaders voiced their disapproval, warning that America's actions threatened global stability. The protest became a symbol of worldwide resistance, uniting people across borders in a call for change. Behind the statistics are real people whose lives were upended by mass deportations. Families were separated, children left in limbo, and communities fractured. Through personal stories and motion graphics, we put faces to the numbers, showing the emotional toll of these policies. The documentary highlights the resilience of those affected and the support networks that emerged in response to the crisis. Economic consequences of Trump's tariffs rippled through every sector. Small businesses closed, unemployment rose, and consumer confidence plummeted. Animated graphs and motion graphics break down the numbers, revealing the true cost of protectionist policies. Experts weigh in on the long-term damage, warning that recovery will take years. The documentary paints a vivid picture of a nation grappling with economic uncertainty. As U.S. forces amassed near Iran, the risk of conflict grew ever more real. Military analysts warned of unintended consequences, and diplomatic channels strained under the pressure. Animated battle maps and timelines illustrate the buildup, while expert commentary explains the stakes. The world held its breath, hoping for de-escalation but preparing for the worst. Media exploded with coverage of Trump's speech and its aftermath. News outlets dissected every word, while social media buzzed with debate and outrage. Motion graphics recreate the whirlwind of headlines, tweets, and breaking news alerts that dominated the airwaves. The information overload made it difficult for the public to separate fact from spin, fueling confusion and anxiety. Mass deportation refers to the large-scale removal of undocumented immigrants from a country, often through coordinated government action. In Trump's 2026 policy, this meant targeting millions for removal regardless of their ties to the community or length of stay. The concept is controversial, raising questions about human rights, due process, and the social fabric of affected communities. Tariffs are taxes imposed on imported goods, intended to protect domestic industries. Trump's administration used tariffs as a tool to pressure trading partners and boost American manufacturing. However, the 2026 tariffs led to higher prices for consumers and retaliation from other countries, ultimately harming the U.S. economy more than helping it. Military escalation describes the process by which conflicts intensify, often through increased troop deployments or aggressive rhetoric. In 2026, Trump's actions toward Iran exemplified this, as both sides prepared for possible confrontation. The risk of miscalculation or accidental conflict grew with each new development, making de-escalation efforts critical. Approval ratings measure public support for a political leader or policy. After Trump's 2026 State of the Union, his approval ratings collapsed, reflecting widespread dissatisfaction. Polls became a key indicator of the administration's struggles, with numbers dropping to historic lows and signaling a crisis of confidence. Within the United States, Trump's policies sparked fierce debate. State governments, advocacy groups, and ordinary citizens voiced their opposition through protests, legal challenges, and public campaigns. Animated scenes show the diversity of resistance, from city halls to rural communities. The backlash highlighted deep divisions in American society and the enduring power of grassroots activism. World leaders condemned Trump's aggressive policies, warning that they threatened global stability. The United Nations and allied governments issued statements of concern, while economic partners considered retaliatory measures. Motion graphics illustrate the diplomatic fallout, showing how America's standing on the world stage suffered as a result. As tariffs and military tensions mounted, investors grew nervous. Stock markets fluctuated wildly and businesses delayed major decisions. Animated financial charts and expert commentary explain the uncertainty, showing how policy unpredictability can undermine economic growth. The documentary explores the ripple effects on jobs, savings, and investment. Social media platforms became battlegrounds for debate and misinformation. Hashtags trended worldwide and viral videos amplified both outrage and support. Motion graphics recreate the digital storm, showing how quickly narratives spread and how difficult it became to find reliable information. The online conversation shaped public perception and fueled further polarization. Human impact of Trump's policies was felt most acutely by families. Parents faced deportation, children feared for their futures, and entire communities rallied to provide support. Through animated vignettes and personal stories, we highlight the resilience and courage of those affected, as well as the challenges they continue to face. Business leaders voiced concern over the economic impact of tariffs and instability. Many warned that continued uncertainty would drive investment overseas and hurt American competitiveness. Animated interviews and infographics present the business perspective, emphasizing the need for stable, predictable policy to foster growth. Iran responded to U.S. military escalation with its own show of force. Troops mobilized and diplomatic channels heated up. Animated maps and expert analysis explain the risks of miscalculation and the potential for wider conflict. The world watched nervously as the standoff continued. Global backlash refers to the widespread negative reaction from the international community in response to a country's actions. In 2026, Trump's policies triggered protests, diplomatic rifts, and economic retaliation worldwide. The backlash signaled a loss of American influence and a shift in global alliances. Civil rights organizations and state governments filed lawsuits to block Trump's most controversial policies. Animated courtrooms and legal documents illustrate the battle in the courts, where judges weighed the constitutionality of mass deportations and executive orders. The legal fight became a central front in the struggle over America's future. Economic fallout describes the negative consequences that follow major policy changes or crises. In 2026, Trump's tariffs and military actions led to job losses, higher prices, and reduced investment. The fallout affected every sector from agriculture to technology and left lasting scars on the economy. Across the country, ordinary people organized to resist Trump's policies. Community groups, faith organizations, and activists mobilized to protect vulnerable neighbors and demand change. Animated scenes show rallies, mutual aid efforts, and the power of collective action in times of crisis. America's reputation suffered as allies distanced themselves and critics gained ground. Animated world maps and diplomatic cables illustrate the decline in global trust. The documentary explores how the U.S. image shifted from leader to outlier, with long-term consequences for foreign policy. The State of the Union is an annual address by the U.S. President to Congress, outlining the administration's priorities and vision. In 2026, Trump used this platform to announce sweeping changes, making it one of the most consequential speeches in recent history. As the crisis deepened, calls for accountability grew louder. Lawmakers, journalists, and citizens demanded answers for the administration's actions. Animated timelines and interviews highlight the push for investigations, oversight, and reform. The search for accountability became a rallying cry for those seeking change. Events following Trump's 2026 State of the Union left a nation and world forever changed. As we look ahead, questions remain about the path forward. Will America heal its divisions? Can global alliances be rebuilt? Animated graphics and expert voices offer perspectives on what comes next, emphasizing the importance of vigilance, dialogue, and hope. The aftermath of Trump's 2026 State of the Union, the world learned hard lessons about leadership, accountability, and the power of collective action. This documentary has explored the policies, protests, and consequences that defined a pivotal moment in history. As we close, we reflect on the resilience of communities, the importance of truth, and the ongoing struggle for justice and democracy. The story is far from over, and the lessons remain more relevant than ever.